In this video, we're going to break down every character in the X-Force under the leadership of Cable, aka Nathan Summers. Hey guys, Rich from Richmond Gaming. Hope everyone is doing fantastically well and welcome to this another Marvel Crisis Protocol video. We're doing another one of our affiliation guides, and this time we're going to be tackling the X-Force under the brand new leadership, or at least changed somewhat, so it's slightly better leadership of Cable, aka Nathan Summers. Now, I have been wanting to do this one for a little while, but I did want to wait for the release, or at least the reveal of Bishop's card, so that we had those new characters in there. But also I wanted to do this because it's an affiliation that I think has definitely gone up in the rankings, or at least in my own personal rankings, since all of those card changes that happened. Not only did Cable get a revamp on his card, on his leadership, but also a lot of the characters in X-Force had a buff, basically. You could argue that one of them got a little bit of a nerf. It's still sort of in the balance, but they've got access to some really good characters, and they're an affiliation that I always wanted to be really good. I just never really found my click with them, but now they're definitely an affiliation that I'm considering going back and taking a look at and maybe getting some games in. For anyone that's followed the channel for any sort of time, right, you'll probably already know Cable is one of my, if not my favourite character in the whole of not just MCP, but the whole of Marvel everything. I remember watching him in the X-Men 97, or the original X-Men animated series, alongside Bishop and everybody else that was in there, and I thought they were absolutely cool. Time-traveling superhero mutants were just brilliant, and it's fair to say that X-Force have been a little bit underwhelming. Now, I still think they need some extra little things, but we'll get into those as we go through the video. But we're going to be doing this. We're going to take every single character and rank them using our trusty S to D system. It's tried and tested and loved by everyone other than that one guy. I can't remember who you are, but you know who you are. So S is going to be absolutely exceptional. You are probably going to be taking them in every single squad that you put together. A tier is going to be really, really good. They're probably making it into every single roster that you build. B is going to be absolutely perfectly middle of the road. No problems with them. They don't need any tweaks or anything. Really good balanced character. C tier is going to be kind of okay, but it may be that there are some options either in or out of affiliation that can slot in that just do a better job or do the same job better. And then D tier is going to be really, at least in my opinion, not viable at the moment, and maybe you want to look at alternative characters in there. But before we get into actually ranking each of the individual characters themselves, let's start off by taking a look at Cable and seeing what he does. So Cable is a 5-threat leader, and that's one of the problems that I feel X-Force have always had, is that they've got that 5-threat leader and they have no other options, which can make it quite difficult, especially in one of these smaller affiliations that we have in Marvel Crisis Protocol. They don't have access to the abundance of 2 and 3 threat characters that a lot of the other affiliations have, especially when you've got that big 5-threat or big cost 5-threat leader. But he's a 3-3-4 on his defensive stat line. He's going to have 7 stamina on his healthy side. As we mentioned, he's a 5-threat character. He's size 2 and he moves short, but he is on a medium base, which kind of makes up for it a little bit, but he does have some tricks up his sleeve that he can use to get himself about the battlefield a little bit better. Starting off then, his builder is going to be his plasma rifle. It's going to be range 5, strength 5, 0 cost obviously because it's a builder, and it's going to be power equal to damage dealt. Now, one of the big differences here is that if the character is within range 3, he may reroll up to 2 dice in the attack roll. Now, In the past, you kind of sat Cable back and had him as a back point holder, sort of firing in those long range shots. Now with that range 3 boost, he's a character that you feel a little bit more comfortable in moving up the board, being in and around the action. He's got a couple of other things that are going to help his teammates out as well. But getting those rerolls just increases the damage output of that plasma rifle significantly, and it also helps you fish for that wild, which is going to give you an incinerate, or give your opponent even the incinerate special condition. Akanison, which is his mystic spender, it's going to be area 2, strength 7, it costs 5 power. And then for each attack that deals damage, after the attack is resolved, remove 1 damage from this character. So just a reminder, when we're doing area attacks or we're doing beam attacks, each individual attack itself is classed as a separate attack. So if he's got 3 people in range and he does damage to all 3 of them, he's going to be able to remove 3 damage from himself. Not something I see used a huge amount, but as a clutch to get him out of a sort of sticky situation if he's running low on health, it can be really, really useful, and in the right setting can be quite impactful in terms of the damage that it does. But the thing that we really want to look at here is that Wetworks affiliation for X-Force. Each allied character may reroll 1 die in their attack rolls once per turn, including failure results. If they do, and the enemy character is within 3, the enemy character does not benefit from cover during the attack. So, you know, there are a couple of, or at least one crisis that are going to, you know, work really, really well for these guys. I forget the name of it. It's not superpowered scoundrels. I forget the one of the name, but you guys know the one that gives you cover if you are contesting the point. And you know, it does remove a lot of characters that are going to be getting cover, and just again increasing that damage output of all of your characters, especially now that you can reroll those failure results. That makes a big difference. It's still only once per attack per turn, which, you know, kind of is okay, but they don't have to pay for it like some of the other rerolls. So I think overall now, Cable's leadership is pretty good, and it really leans into that attrition-based style of play that they want to play, which I absolutely love. Body slide by 1 is going to cost 2 power, and it's a place within range 2. That's the kind of thing that helps him overcome that issue of only having that short move. Omega level threat, for me, one of the best throws in the game. A throw that costs X and lets you only, or allows you to only spend the power of the size of the building that you're throwing, and it's a medium throw and it's within range 3, is really, really good. So you want to throw a range 1 building, or a size 1 building, sorry, you pay 1 power. Size 4, you pay 4. And it's another reason now why you want Cable sort of further up the board and not just as that back point holder, because he can start yeeting terrain around and making some really, really good use of that sort of out of action damage that provides. Telekinetic shield is going to help not only him but all of his teammates as well, so it costs 2, and allied characters that are within 3 that are targeted by an attack get to add 2 dice to their attack roll, so just increasing that survivability and stopping some of your characters going down as quickly as they otherwise would. And then techno-organic virus suppression. During the power phase, this character gains 1 additional power, which is nice. It means that, you know, you can do a body slide by 1 turn 1, move up, maybe pop off a plasma rifle, or even pop off 2 plasma rifles, and hopefully get some more power back to then be in a position where you can start using that telekinetic shield or any of the other abilities that you've got. And then, I don't know if it's random or not, I don't know the reasoning for this, but he is immune to poison. So that's a thing. So overall, guys, obviously that Wetworks leadership, really all about attrition. Rerolling your attack rolls, allowing you to manipulate failure results, and stopping your opponent benefiting from cover. All lean into that attrition playstyle. And when we go through and we look at each of the characters that are in this roster, you'll see that that's really what they are leaning into. Now, I usually do these in alphabetic order. So we would normally be starting with Bishop, but I want to leave Bishop until last because he's the newest character. So instead, let's jump ahead and take a look at the, I think, vastly new and improved Colossus, aka Piotr Rasputin. So Colossus is going to be a 4-threat character. He's a 4-3-3 on his defensive stat line. He's got throws. His attacks are okay. He can dish out the stagger condition, which is pretty good. But really, he is there to be the bodyguard, the tank, the character on the board that's going to soak up all of that damage. And stop your other characters from being dazed or KO'd. So he's got Big Brother, which is basically a pseudo bodyguard, and then Bosmoy, which when targeted by a physical or energy attack, he's going to be able to add 2 dice to it. So putting him up to either a 6/5, and then remembering that he can also have extra dice added to him from Cable as well, so potentially putting him up to an 8/7. So for those big attacks that are coming in that want to take out one of your characters, you can use the Big Brother to take the hit on Colossus, and then you can really boost him up so that he's got a much better chance of being able to live. New Colossus for me is a really good character, medium move now as well makes him significantly better. And for me, I think I'm always going to be taking him in my roster. I can't see a roster that I put together for X-Force where Colossus isn't in there. But I think there are some situations where he isn't going to make it into my squad. If we end up on a much more wider spread out map, I think he loses some of his impact, because when you've got everybody condensed and closed in on like a Gamma or something like that, he's very valuable because he's going to be in range of multiple characters. But as you're spread out, if you're on a D or even a B, he becomes not less viable, but his abilities are less impactful. So for me, he's going to go into that A tier. So next up then is going to be everyone's favourite merc with a mouth. It is, of course, Deadpool, aka Wade Wilson. And this is the character that I'm still not sure about. I'm not sure if what they did to him made him better or made him worse even. So what were the big changes for him? Well, for me, the biggest changes were he got stab on his stab, which is quite good. So he gets to make a follow-up stab attack. But he lost his bang on his bang attack, so he now only gets to trigger it once, or potentially trigger it once. And I just think with the added or the extra addition of the rerolls and things like that, I think it could have been really good. I still think he's a perfectly serviceable character, and he's a character who I am more than likely going to be putting in my roster, but I just don't think that he's an absolute cert. He is a 3-threat, which does really help. We are in X-Force, there are a limited number of characters overall, but a lot of the characters are 4-threat. So having a 3-threat character definitely does go in his favour. But for me, I think I'm going to put him into that B tier. I'm just still not sure about Deadpool only having 4 stamina on his healthy side. I think he really struggles with that. And yes, when he flips over to his injured side, he goes up to 6, and he still counts as a healthy character when contesting and things like that. But I'd have much preferred to see him as a 5/5 or even a 6/4 or something like that. I just think he's a little bit too easy to take off the board, and because of that, that 2 healing factor, that healing factor 2 that he has, doesn't often come into play too much when you've only got 4 stamina on your front side. So yeah, for me, he goes into B tier. Again, perfectly serviceable, nothing wrong with him. I wouldn't be wondering what on earth somebody was doing if they were taking him in their roster or in their squad. But I do think that there are a couple of other better characters in there at that same threat level. And talking about characters that are at the same threat level, who I think are still pretty darn good, even with the ever so slight nerf that she had a while back, it is, of course, Domino, aka Nina Thurman. So she's a 3-threat character. She's got the rapid fire pistol, which can be really, really good for both power generation, but also getting through opponents and actually taking them down. The grenade bounce with the incinerate that's guaranteed is really, really good. And you've got that explosive, meaning that all of the characters within range 2 are going to take a damage as well. Lucky Shot kind of is okay. It's not an attack I see too many people make. I think, automatic pistols are just so good because you can get that rapid fire off. So for 0 power and actually gaining a power, you've got a chance of being able to get off an extra 4 shots rather than it just being a 6 strength attack that costs 3 power. So I think that's probably the reason why. She's got the probability manipulation, and that's the part where I was talking about where your opponent, not your opponent, but you get to add in crits for your failures, but the way it works now is it's been slightly changed, so you can't overpay. You used to be able to overpay for them. Now you can only pay for what you've got, but it does mean that she gets to count failures as crits, which can increase the damage output significantly. And then the things tend to go my way when this character is attacking or defending. Enemy characters do not get to roll additional dice for crit results in their attack or defense rolls. So it makes that more survivable, and it makes it that much more egregious when it comes to doing damage. Combine that with the fact that she can now stop cover as well, and her automatic pistols are range 3, so that's typically the attacks that you're doing. So she's not only turning off the crit, she's also turning off cover now as well, which is, when it all stacks up, all these little things stacking up really, really do help with the damage output. I think she's an absolutely solid character. She's probably going in every roster that I build for X-Force. So for me, she's going to go into A tier, just behind Colossus for me. I think for me, Colossus just edges it out. And by the way, the system is obviously S through to D is the ranking, but then the closer they are to the letter is, I think they're better when they're closer to getting up to that next tier. Okay then, guys, let's go on to the only 2 threats in affiliation for X-Force, and that of course is Gabrielle Kinney, aka the Honey Badger. She is a 2-threat character with a 2 dangerous to ignore, which is quite nice. It's again another pseudo bodyguard, ankle biter, dishing out a area 1 incinerate effectively, but it's stacked with incinerate as well. So again, leaning into that attrition game, she can be very, very useful indeed. She's got a little bit of synergy with Laura Kinney, aka X23, with the big sis, little sis thing that lets her get around the board a little bit more. She does go down very, very easily, but she is a 2-threat character. But she's a 2-threat character that can actually dish out a reasonable amount of damage. One of the problems is that she can't score you VPs. So yes, she's got a couple of great attacks and great stat lines. But the problem is that ankle biter, this character cannot contest, interact with, or hold objective tokens. So you do have a character on your board that can't score you VPs, but I think the play style of X-Force now is very much that attrition based. And whilst you still need to score VPs, on a 2-threat character, I think it's less impactful. Now, she does have Jonathan the Unstoppable, which lets her leave a token behind and secure an objective. Works a little bit like Mystique's. I think for a tactics card slot and what it costs, the opportunity cost for doing it, it's not worthwhile, but it is there if you want it. For me, personally wouldn't take it. But I think she's absolutely fine. For me, she goes in that B tier, behind Deadpool. I think what's keeping her up there for me is the fact that she is a 2-threat. She's the only 2-threat option that X-Force have. But there are maybe other 2-threats that you can take, depending on your playstyle, depending on what you're going to do, that are out of affiliation that could be ahead of her. So for me, she makes it into B tier, so perfectly fine, perfectly serviceable, no issues there whatsoever. Okay then, guys, moving on to another 4-threat, and it is Elizabeth Braddock, aka Psylocke. Now, Psylocke does bring some much needed mystic attacks and indeed energy attacks. You know, they are lacking a little bit. Yes, you've got some with Cable and you've got some with Domino, but I believe, and I think maybe some with Bishop as well, but the psychic attacks, or the mystic attacks, sorry, are definitely something that you don't have access to in an abundance. She's got a couple of nice things on her, you know, telekinetic katana, range 2, strength 5. You get to choose if it's mystic or energy, which can be nice. Neural disruption: before damage is dealt, the character loses 1 power. It's kind of a thing, but you know, Cyber with Pursuit is okay. The problem I think Psylocke has is she's up against a lot of other, quite a number of other 4-threats in this roster. One in particular who is very, very good, and I think for me she just doesn't stack up as well. And then she's also got a couple of things that are you know, they don't sort of lend themselves into it. So she's got stealth, which is fine. It's great. Having stealth is really good. It means you can't be picked off. But it also, you know, she wants to be within 3 to get all of those extra benefits that you get from the leadership. So for me, she's not a character who I've ever really found any sort of affinity with. I just think there are better options at 4-threat, both in and indeed outside of affiliation. So for me, whilst I don't think she's a bad character at all, she's going to go into that C tier, purely because I just think there are some better options out there that you can take, that I think are going to have, you know, quite a bit more impact on the board and maybe work with that leadership that little bit better. Okay then, guys, next up is going to be, I think, one of the few characters in this affiliation. There's maybe only sort of 1 or 2 more that have never had a change to their card, and it is Sabretooth, aka Victor Creed, and this is the original Sabretooth. I really, really like this guy. He's a 4-threat, so again, he's got some stiff competition, but his damage output is absolutely phenomenal. And the fact that he has that reactive ability, Untamed Force, meaning that after he's attacked, it can use his superpower. If they're within 2, he can make a claw slash against them. So, you know, they've got to be within 2, but that's fine. He has aggressive, so he can make a move forward, a short move forward, meaning that if he does get pushed or it was a range 3 attack, something like that, he is going to be able to get in there. He does have a long move as well, which is not to be sniffed at. A long move with his damage output is really, really good. He also has the healing factor. And one thing I didn't mention is obviously cards like exceptional healing have a huge value within X-Force because of the number of characters that have that healing factor special ability. I think he's really, really good. Now, I don't think he's good enough to put up into S tier, but for me, he's going to be going into every roster that I build because I just think he's really, really good. And this is a personal preference thing. I just really like him. So he's going to be going into A tier, but I am going to put him to the bottom end of A tier. I'm not that naive to think that everybody out there absolutely loves him, but for me, he just always does work whenever I take him. I actually much prefer this version to the new version, even though when you look at it, the new version is probably better. Just the OG version always does a lot of work for me. So yeah, he goes into A tier. It's my tier list. I can do what I want. Next up then, guys, is going to be probably the most impactful change, I would say, outside of the leadership change, but it is Wolverine, aka James Logan Howlett. He's a 4-threat character. We've talked about this guy so much. He is now the best at what he does. That healing factor 2, the even things like the adamantium skeleton making him much harder to push around. Obviously, you've got that synergy there with him and Colossus with fastball special. He's going to make a huge amount of value from Cable's leadership because all of his attacks are either range 2 or range 3. So ignoring cover and being able to get the rerolls, which really do help him. Having those rerolls really do help him, especially when you do something like the best at what I do with the Berserker Barrage and you're doubling up those wilds that you get as counting as 2. His damage output can be absolutely phenomenal. It's probably no surprise, guys, whatsoever that Wolverine is going straight into A tier. Into S tier even. A tier into S tier. He's, for me, maybe one of the single best characters in the game right now for damage output and consistency. He's got huge survivability as well, with that access to that exceptional healing, his healing factor 2. He makes huge use of no matter the cost, especially around, turn 1. So yeah, for me, he's one of the best characters in the game right now at that 4-threat space, and he can even take out bigger threat characters than him, but he mows down 2s and 3s like a knife through butter. So yeah, he goes straight into S tier for me. And then rounding it out before we get to Bishop is going to be, of course, Laura Kinney, aka X23, the Wolverine that was. Now look, just because Wolverine has gotten better doesn't mean that X23 is any worse. She is very, very good indeed. Once again, benefiting hugely from Cable's leadership, especially as she has her own rerolls because of that assassin training. So she's able to compound that and get extra rerolls in there. She's got so much movement on the back of that claw rush. She's got pierce on both of her attacks. Again, she has that little bit of synergy with her and Honey Badger. But yeah, I for a 3-threat character, she does a huge amount of work. She's also got healing factor 2 as well. So another character that can, if you want, make use of no matter the cost. But she, like her father, if you will, is going to go straight into S tier. For me, she is going to go just underneath Wolverine, which I'm so glad I can say, because it never used to be the case. But I think, for their threat levels, they're both very, very good characters. But for me, I think Wolverine probably just edges. But if you're ever in a situation where you can't take him, you need to be a threat down, or you want to take both of them, and then they are both absolutely viable, either working together or putting Laura in so that if you need to drop a threat level. So there we go, guys. That is all of the older characters, if you like, for the X-Force. But let's take a look at Bishop, aka Lucas Bishop. Now, I did do a breakdown of Bishop a little while back, and I sort of said that I thought he was an okay character. Since then, I've been able to play a few games with him, and actually my opinion of him has actually increased, especially under X-Force, or especially in X-Force. He has a lot of synergy with the leadership from Cable. So he's a 4-threat character, so again, quite a lot of competition, but he's a slightly different play style to what we see from Wolverine and from X23 in particular. And one of the reasons is he does have that energy attack. So coming up against affiliations that have, high physical defensive things, the likes of even somebody like Convocation, who get to use all of their mystic defenses as physical defenses, things like that. So having that energy attack is pretty darn good. And he dishes out a guaranteed incinerate if it's within range 3. And obviously in range 3, you get all of those other benefits from Cable's leadership as well. Return with interest is kind of okay. You do get to choose what attack type it's going to be. And then you can spend up to 3 additional power. So for 8 power, let's say you've got 3 opponents in sight, you're going to be doing 3 10 dice attacks, which is pretty brutal. And then he's got the extreme force, which is going to push them away as well. He's another character with a throw. So when you look down, there's only Cable, there's only Colossus, and now Bishop that have got throws or accessible throws that are terrain throws or enemy throws that are not off the back of something. Obviously, Wolverine has it off the back of his spender, but it requires him to actually do damage to be able to do that. So having access to another throw is pretty damn good. And enemy character or terrain size 4, range 2 medium for 3 power is pretty darn good indeed. Mutant energy absorption is something that I never really thought was particularly good, but again, when I reread this again and played with it, oh my word, it is so good. And the reason it is so good is because of that for each wild. So it's the reverse pierce. It makes him so much more survivable, especially when you're adding in the extra dice from Cable. So yeah, really good. Overload, extra power if he has 8. Sorry, Overload is at the start of the power phase. Ignore that one. If he has 8 or more power, suffer 1 damage. That is one of the things that is a problem for him. But I think you've got ways of being able to get around that. He's also immune to Incinerate, Poison, and Stun. So the Incinerate's a really nice one. Just make sure he's always getting that minimum defensive stat line, unless he's stood next to an ankle biter or something like that. But I think Bishop's going to be a very, very good member of the X-Force. I think that he's going to be very, very good indeed. And because of that, guys, he isn't quite making it into S tier, but he is going to go to the very top of A tier. I don't think he quite has enough in there to earn him that S tier spot, but I do think he has enough to make it into A tier. So there we go, guys. That is my breakdown of all of the characters under the leadership of Nathan Summers, aka Cable, in X-Force. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Have I missed something? Have I put somebody lower than they should have been? Again, an affiliation with no D tier characters in there, which is solid, but it's also a smaller affiliation. So I think you would hope that they were a little bit more honed. But I think X-Force are going to be a, pardon the pun, force to be reckoned with over the next 12 months or so in Marvel Crisis Protocol. Maybe they've got some new characters coming as well. There's a couple of others who I'd love to see. Have we seen Forge yet? I can't remember if we've seen Forge yet or not. Maybe we have, but he's a character that I'm also looking forward to them bringing in into the affiliation as well. And I think, like I say, these are really going to be my go-to guys. I've kind of binned off the Sentinel project that I had running. They were just so difficult to do anything with, so dice dependent. But I'm really excited and really looking forward to getting my hands on Bishop and then also being able to play him in the X-Force as well. Guys, we're going to be doing more of these. I'm going to be trying words are hard to say. I'm going to be trying to do one of these every single Friday for you guys over the next few weeks. So let me know down in the comment section below which affiliation and which leadership I should tackle next, and then whichever gets the most likes or whatever it is, we'll pick that one and we'll do that one next Friday as well. So we're going to try and make this a bit more of a regular segment for you guys, or a regular video for you guys, because feedback is that you guys love these videos. A little bit around the play style of X-Force. As I mentioned, it's all about the attrition, and because of that, you want to try and daze and KO a couple of your opponents as early as you can. You probably want to be thinking about more of a closed in map, so a gamma wave or a demons or something like that. And the fact that you've got characters now like Bishop that are immune to incinerate, that can be very, very useful indeed. They still need a little bit of help when it comes to tactics cards, but the good thing is that each of these individual characters, or a lot of them, have got very good tactics cards themselves that they can access, and they can make very good use of things like no matter the cost and exceptional healing. It makes them very, very survivable. And if you add a brace for impact in there as well, you're kind of getting an extra level of survivability. So I think they're in a really, really good position. But guys, we're going to leave it there. As I say, let me know in the comment section below what video you would like to see next for this series that we're doing, and the one that gets the most likes or I just like the look of, I will do next week. I want to give a big shout out to all of our Patreons, a huge thank you to them for supporting us. Also a big shout out to our sponsors, Leodis Games. You can find a link down below giving you a £5 voucher off your first order over £50. And as always guys, it leaves me with just enough time to say stay well, keep safe, and until next time, bye for now.